Do you know how it feels when you mostly ignore a game franchise that was a defining part of your generation? I like to shine light on older titles or less mainstream ones. The era of mainstream Call of Duty is what I look at my teenage years as being a part of. Call of Duty 3 came out when I was 12, Black Ops 2 came out when I was 18, and while I wasn't particularly interested in either, this was all part of a zeitgeist and everyone talked about it. It was just part of cultural osmosis. I haven't been especially big on first-person shooters. Sure, some of my favorite games of all time have us in first-person and sometimes shooting, but I'm more there for other types of gameplay like stealth or role-playing. I know I'm a loser, so let me advertise it even more. That said, I do enjoy the more fast-paced circle-strafing shooters of yesteryears that are kind of making a resurgence again, and I'm honor bound to play them on every system I can, whether they be official or homebrew. These games can be so fast and kinetic. They reward player mastery and allow for varied approaches and on-the-fly reactions. Whether they put you in a room and won't let you leave until you've massacred everything there, or if they're open levels that reward exploration, or you're there fending off waves and waves of enemies. They all keep the pace up and they are rewarding to get good at. And then we have Call of Duty. Previously, I'd only played 2 Call of Duty titles before, and this is back when they were pretty new. I played Call of Duty 4 and I liked it, but not enough to finish the campaign or even play online. And I played Black Ops 1 and I didn't like it, so I especially didn't finish the campaign or play online. But my portable desires have led me to this series once again, and since I don't want to crack open anything with 2 screens right now, my best bet was the Sony handheld Call of Duty titles. Surprisingly, there are only 2, one before the franchise became as mainstream as it was, and the other on the tail end of it, which did still ultimately release at a good time, just on a system more unpopular than my opinions of Black Ops Declassified will be. The PSP, this was an amazing piece of technology for the time, and it had the power to do almost console caliber games on the go. We had everything we needed for fluid, first-person shooters on the go, except any kind of second analog input. We can't plug a mouse in, there's no Circle Pad Pro, there's no gyro. We have nothing for shooters to work well. But there are these 4 buttons that almost kind of worked. Using 4 buttons for camera control kind of worked on the Nintendo 64, we didn't know what we were doing back then. But the lack of a second analog nub on the PSP is one of life's greatest mysteries. But at least they fixed it with the Vita and everyone was grateful? Okay, bad example. But at least Vita owners can cheat the system by setting the analog stick as a mirror of the face buttons in PSP emulation. And this works surprisingly well. But if that doesn't feel good, you can just move the controller preset 2, 3 or 4 and just hope for the best. Call of Duty Roads to Victory is the stopgap between Call of Duty 3 and 4, and it definitely feels like a 3.5, except in the sense that it's uglier, glitchier, and controls worse than 3, so maybe it's a 2.9. We play as American, Canadian, and British forces in various World War II battles that all feel the exact same except for the accents of your buddies changing. This title does feel awkward to play, but it does surprisingly do the best job it could. The shoulder buttons and the D-pad carry all the slack, and while these are not ideal, they did crowbar these controls onto the few buttons they had quite successfully. We use the D-pad for things like switching weapons, throwing grenades, ducking, context-sensitive things which is just you blowing something up in a scripted way. Our melee attacks are on the same button as shooting, and your character just automatically goes for melee when at close enough range, and it outright removes any issues with the controller layout. These melee attacks are one-hit kills, which is nice but unrealistic, but I think we threw out the idea of realism the moment a single American who can tank hits just mow down hundreds of soldiers without so much as self-gratification. He's silent, except he does breathe a lot, especially if you finish a mission when you're on low health. You do really feel like a nameless, voiceless robot here, but I suppose that's preferable to being annoying all the time. And I feel like I'd be silent too if I lived in a simulation this prone to breaking. Whether it be animations not playing, not being able to progress at all, or not being able to progress at all while being visually assaulted. Roads to Victory has a few issues, but it's worth it because you do unlock cool wallpapers via PSP if you keep playing. Other than wallpapers, our unlockables include in-depth descriptions of various weaponry, artillery, and other pieces of World War II paraphernalia, so feel free to use this game as a source on your history report. And we get videos like a trailer for an already released game we can't play on this system. But now thanks to all this, I now know panzers are a real thing and not just something from Bugs vs Tanks on 3DS. And now I know World War II was a thing and not just something from Conker's Bad Fur Day. I learnt a lot playing this game. But that's not all you have to keep yourself engaged. These bite-sized missions reward you for replaying and perfecting your score based on how good you are. You'll either get gold, silver, or shameful bronze. So I could see this being something to keep yourself entertained on multiple visits. These missions are all given to you by someone clearly using a computer but pretending this is handwritten, and in addition to following those instructions, you'll follow every instruction given to you by the humans around you with names hovering over their heads like MMO players. At least the text is visible, unlike the text you see when you're almost dead. They will constantly instruct you on what to do, and since you can't jump or open doors, you're at the mercy of them. Do what they say until they are satisfied with you and will actually open up the rest of the level. And since the game is quite glitchy, there will be times that no matter what you do, they won't open the door for you, and you'll have to acquaint yourself with your own grenade to get everything reset. And when you die, you'll be welcomed by some text which can be very jarring, because more often than not this text will show before you even process the fact that you died. There can be falling animations or slower transitions, but most of the time, nah. You get shot and immediately you see text. This might have been an impressive game for the time, but it just doesn't interest me anymore. I can respect it, but this is a mediocre shooter, and while it's neat as a portable title, I just don't care for it. And besides, this is a deceptive game. We start off only being able to play as United States soldiers, and we have a long list of missions. But following those, we get 2 unlockable campaigns that hardly have any meat on their bone, but at least their quality is higher as the best missions here are later in the game. The US missions in particular just go on forever, and even if they're 10 minutes each in length, they will feel much longer. Especially the aerial turret section, which is just a slightly more fun version of Sky Chase from Sonic Adventure. This game as a whole is slow paced, and while I get that fits a World War II setting, it doesn't fit the "am I having fun" quota. This game could have been fun for multiplayer, but I'm just not finding online matches in 2021 for some reason. Sadly, Call of Duty Roads to Victory for PSP just didn't do it for me. But what about the next Sony handheld title? Oh, wait, no, that's the one that reviewed terribly and was the last game put out by its developer, oh no. To make things worse, Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified for Vita was made in about 5 months' time. And I'll just say, that makes me respect it a hell of a lot more than I would have without knowing that tidbit. But even with that said, this is still a fine enough game. But seeing what they did within that time frame does make me go from, yeah, this is okay to, yeah, this is slightly better than okay. This isn't a great game, this isn't a hidden gem or anything, and it's by no means winning the Value for Money award. But I enjoyed this more than its PSP sibling, and I can see myself playing it a few more times, but probably not much more than that. We have an in-between midquel here, which adds more story between Call of Duty Black Ops and Black Ops 2. Imagine Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge but with no substance. Our missions are set during the Cold War, and we switch between 2 protagonists which are basically the same except they have different arms to look at. Not surprisingly, the gameplay is better here. We have 2 sticks to work with, as well as both of the Vita's touchpads, which are put to novel uses. We have a larger variety of options and more accuracy, making things a comfier experience. Little things like being able to switch weapons and pick up new ones being assigned to different button prompts helps a ton. And while less elegant, mapping melee attacks to a touchscreen at least means you have to deliberately choose this option instead of just lucking into it when you're rubbing up against a combatant. Grenade usage is also on the touchscreen, and I'm kind of undecided with it. We use the touchscreen to drag and precisely aim our throw, which is certainly a level of unparalleled freedom and it's just kind of fun to do, but it also means as someone with 2 hands I have to take my hand off the right side of the Vita, at least partially, and it does kind of lose the flow. I'm not one of those people that says the Nintendo 64 was for people with 3 hands, but Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified on Vita certainly was. They must have been proud of this grenade throwing as it's on the back of a box, but this game has so little substance I guess they didn't have much choice. And this is because while the gameplay itself is quite excellent and a huge leap over the PSP, and we have many more weapons than ever before and gameplay variety, content-wise this leaves a lot to be desired. Some missions can be completed in less than 3 minutes, and the longest mission I had was about 7 minutes. This isn't me perfecting and practicing strats. These were my first successful runs. I specify that because I did fail missions a lot because I am quite bad at these games, but even with that said, this campaign will last you about half an hour to an hour. And there aren't any checkpoints in missions here, so you'll be restarting each mission from the beginning, which means you can't really brute force it as much and you have to get good at the actual missions. But it does really highlight just how short each mission is, as you'll be running through it quicker and quicker each time. Given the development time, I won't blame the devs for short missions. It was an uphill battle and it's just how it is, and sadly, even the PSP missions broke the 10-minute mark, and there were more of them. These missions, however, are really varied. We have to protect hostages, set off airstrikes in a touchscreen to take out moving planes, use night vision goggles in a dark underground, and quite a few other things that keep each mission feeling fresh. And I do really appreciate that, since Roads to Victory felt the same throughout the entire game with very few exceptions. And these missions also look very different, as we're given a wider variety of locales to go through. I can identify each mission here, and they did stick with me to some degree, unlike its predecessor. And we don't just have to sit and wait to be instructed on where to go, you're on your own in all of these, but you wouldn't know that considering the fact that protagonists just love talking. But this does mean the pace is always kept up and it never falters, except in just the amount of content there is. This is a more fast-paced game, so fast-paced the game ends in like 30 minutes. This game has nice little bursts of enjoyment, emphasis on little. Okay, I need to stop doing this. This game was not worth full price, and I can easily see why people would be disappointed in its single-player offerings. But this does feel like a fun game to perfect and master, constantly going for higher difficulties and faster times, and the little timer in the bottom left emphasizes this, but it also is a double-edged sword because it just shows how short the game really is. But I had fun! I don't need wallpapers or a Call of Duty 3 trailer to do well in this game, I just need a fun hook, and this has one. And even outside of our campaign, there are a few more things to keep you coming back. We have a time trial mode where we go through small chunks of levels and have to take out cardboard enemies as quickly as possible. It isn't much, but it's something to do if you get bored with what you actually have to do. Something a bit more substantial in this mode is where we have to fight off waves of enemies in multiplayer maps. And honestly, these are actually really fun. I could see myself coming back to this quite a bit. In the meantime, there is the actual multiplayer, which is somehow still being played in 2021. I can now cross having played Call of Duty's multiplayer off my bucket list. I finally done it on a 9-year-old system that died almost as long ago. Call of Duty is certainly a series, and I can say I have beaten 2 of them now. These games were pleasant surprises. I expected to dislike both of them, but instead I think one is underwhelming but okay, and the other is fun enough but so lacking in content it's barely worth thinking about. In fact, neither of these games are really worth thinking about. I'm a bit too highbrow for these kind of juvenile games. Now if you don't mind me, I'm going to play more sophisticated games like Duke Nukem.